say hello to people, you think, when you live in New York and you say hello to somebody, it's like you've got an agenda. Everybody has an agenda.
Exactly.
Instead of just being friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you something, and let me end with this. People say, you moved here, and you seem happy, and we have a wonderful home. But let me tell you something, though. The 47 or 8 years I lived in Long Island, friends of mine said, well, when you move, what's going to happen is you're going to completely forget, you're going to be so much happier, you won't even be thinking about where you left. That's to me, that's crazy. I miss New York. I miss it. The stimulation, the craziness of it, the pulse, the beauty, the excitement. I do miss it. But you know what? I don't miss it either because it's bittersweet.
It's very understandable.
Because of what it's a bittersweet experience.
Don, you can always come here for vacation.
Friends, the music the friends that I made, the musicians I made, the Unitarian church I went to, the community churches I went to, the stimulation, I can't replace it so easily. I miss it.
Well, you also spent more than half your life here.
I spent more of my career, raised my kids,
yes,
educated there, licensed, that kind of thing. I can't forget New York. I can't forget New York. It's just too much part of me. So when people say, "Oh, what'd you move here for?" I say, "Well, financial reasons." But in my heart, I say, "Oh, how I miss it! Oh, how I miss it!" And yet, I have a new life. I'm building a new life here. Playing new bands, meeting with new neighbors, doing that. It's a bittersweet experience. But the people who say, you'll forget about it once you move into your new place, not true. Not true. Not for me, anyway.
When people retire and move elsewhere, invariably, they always talk about where they came from. On Facebook...
Yeah. Sure.
I belong to a couple of groups on Facebook, the boomer generation or children of the 60s and 70s, etc. And everybody, they all want to know where you came from. And when you tell them, they start talking about familiar things that they remember when they lived in New York or Brooklyn, or Long Island. And when they go down to their communities in Florida, they all tend to come together and discuss old times. I mean, you don't forget. First of all, those memories are what keeps you young.
Of course.
Remember. Yes, you remember the good times. You remember some bad times too. It's just a part of life. It's the cycle of life.
Of life. I love to tell stories. Ever since I've been a kid, I used to tell my nieces and nephews, the little kids. I love to tell stories. And one of my favorite stories is my last job when I worked in the nursing home in the rehab center. I was there for 7 years. One of the things I used to do when the physicians made a referral to a psychologist, which was me, would be to make it some kind of diagnosis of, of the mental health or, a psychological diagnosis about the mental status of this particular individual, whether they were in rehab or whether they were in the nursing home. And after I'd introduced myself, I'm Dr. Don, from blah, 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 and I come to get to meet you and see what service I can provide for you and so on and so forth. Of course, most of it was Medicare and Medicaid, whatever service I can provide. Oh, okay, Dr. Don, so whether it be male, female, whatever. So I had to make a diagnosis of their cognitive capability, their mental ability to respond, to form a relationship. And one of my favorite diagnostic questions was, I would say to them, so where are you from? Where you born and raised? And the facility they worked in was down in the South Shore. Most of them came from Brooklyn or somewhere in Long Island in that area. Mm-hmm. And so I would say, where are you from? And they would say, from Brooklyn. And I would say, where's that? Is that part of the United States? Now, that was my way of seeing how they would respond. So if they would smile, chuckle, or throw something at me, I knew that they were responding, one way. Sometimes it would just go over the head, and they didn't get it, and I realized, that they were not really well, they were in pain, or whatever it was, or the cognitively deficits, and so on. But this one time, this one woman was so sharp, so with it, so on top of it, she got the best of me. I said to her, so where are you from? She's in Brooklyn. And I always pause, because you may remember I'm also a community actor. I would pause, I'd look at them and say, Brooklyn? Is that part of the United States? This one woman said to me, Mister, it is the United States. Brooklyn is the United States.
That's right, she's right.
And I go, wow, she got me on that. So I love telling the story. The people here, who say, what kind of work did you do when you left, that kind of thing. And I said, that's my favorite, that is my absolute favorite story. Brooklyn, that is the United States.
Well, that actually is, I read on Facebook, what are some of the questions you don't ask people who are from Brooklyn? And that's one of the things that you're told not to ask them, because people are very protective of Brooklyn. They're very proud of the fact that their roots go back to Brooklyn. But
absolutely,
I just want to say,
remember the environment I'm working in now. They're in pain. They're looking for help, service, and so on. And I don't know if you pick up the kind of guy that I am. I'm not exactly a confrontative or threatening person. In fact, sometimes I don't even introduce myself as Dr. Monaco. I'll just say, here, I'm just here to help out counselor here and sir. And so I try to approach it very gingerly. Mm-hmm. But this woman really taught me a lesson.
Well, I have to tell you that you would get along famously with my daughter, the one who lives in Troy, Ohio. And I'm going to give her her phone number. Oh, we have another caller.
All right, listen.
Hold on.
Hold on, Don. Hello, who's calling?
Yeah, my name's Joe.
Hello, Joe.
We remember you. We remember the number.
Oh, yeah, it's...
Bunch of ones.
It's quite unique. All right, well, I'm taking a look at your page, and you're asking if religion is a major cause of war, and I would say it's absolutely one of the major causes of war. It certainly is a great catalyst that perpetuates war and makes sure that it continues. So I'm just answering that question very briefly.
Well, thank you. I don't know if you had heard, we have Dr. Don on the line, and Dr. Don said, well, it's not only religion, it's also the ideology behind it. That in current times, it's more of an interpretation or ideology than the major cause.
Yeah, well, you didn't need religion when man came from the primordial ooze or when he came out of the bat cave to start killing people. People kill people because of our DNA. We want what other people want. That's one of the triggers. If we don't know what's really the cause of something which we consider strange, we attribute it to some sort of, or we did, and probably still do, attribute it to some sort of supernatural being. So, man is really a primitive mammal, and as a result, we would just engage in conflict for the sake of engaging in conflict. That's why I said that religion is one of the major catalysts.
Well, I used to tell my students that one of the things that man does very well is wage war and kill his fellow man. It doesn't take much learning to do that. Just give them a weapon, or they'll discover, they'll come up with a weapon to use.
And school's a great microcosm of that, because you have the jocks versus the geeks, and the tough versus the softies, and they engage in war without being told to do so. They're not being told how to start being a bully and start picking on somebody who's smaller than you. They just do it because it's fun, because they can. So that's a microcosm of what the whole world is about, and the whole world is about conflict. So religion, even if we didn't have religion, man would find some kind of excuse, as you were talking about this Dr. Don. There would be some sort of ideology, some sort of philosophy, some sort of boogeyman, some sort of sorcerer who would egg the people on in order to have some sort of conflict, because people who are psychopaths, for instance, they love conflict. They love to see people suffer.
Hey, Don, still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I think your caller Joe is making some excellent points. Excellent points. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. The question really becomes is, who are we anyway? I mean, what is human nature? Who are we? I've been reading lately so many things about how in our own DNA, in our own nature, is to cooperate. You know, to be conciliatory, to work together, that kind of thing. Well, how come we don't do that all the time? What causes us to get into so much conflict, to get into so much violence with each other? What causes that?
Jealousy.
Well, jealousy, yeah, that's one of the triggers. We have a predisposition towards violence. Like, it takes 2 years to make a friend, but it takes 2 seconds to turn that friend into an enemy. Because if you have a difference of opinion, just a difference of opinion, there's the fertile ground for having conflict. Now, how about like a bar fight? A bar fight might start off with somebody bumping into somebody innocently, and then somebody makes a wisecrack, and the other person has to make a bigger wisecrack, and then the other person has to return with a bigger wisecrack until they throw punches. It's very and cooperation, Don, you're right. I mean, people do like to cooperate, but take a look at marriages. Marriage should be the epitome of all cooperation, but yet 60% divorces in the first go-around. People engage in conflict very, very easily. They're egos. Now, when you came on just now, about 2 minutes ago, you asked, who are we? I'm going to ask a question to answer that question. If man, and women too, if we as a species escape this planet and we go to another planet and we find people there who are weaker than us, what do you think, and it doesn't matter what nation gets there first, it doesn't matter if America, China, France, Russia gets there first, what do you think the Earthlings will do to that particular planet if the inhabitants of that planet are weaker than we are?
Conquer it.
There you go.
Yeah.
What was the answer? Cause what?
Conquer.
Huh? It will conquer that planet.
Oh, conquer. Yeah, okay.
Okay. And then
so you're saying built into nature is a natural competitiveness to overcome somebody weaker.
Well, that's a nice, benign way of saying it. But the other person who said conquer summed it all up in that word. We will conquer them. We'll say it's colonization for their own good, but it will be all about conquering.
Why would that be so? I mean,
it's our DNA.
As you heard earlier, just to bring up a point earlier, I feel and believe that built into our nature is the you want to call it instinct, trait, desire to really cooperate and work together. When that happens, we build a better world. So why would we want to conquer? I mean, what is it that would make us do that on another planet?
Our DNA, the same reason why we do it here. Just because we cooperate, look, mob families can cooperate with one another. But if you give one of them an edge, they will conquer the other mafia family. We have a predisposition towards conquering. That which we don't want to cooperate with, we try to conquer.
So in other words, we have a stronger DNA, as you're saying, toward competitive violence than we do toward competitive